Nigeria moves to eliminate multiple taxation in pharmaceutical services.
Where individual companies that are challenged or that needs to be supported can interact and do better.
An FCT police command parades 6 suspected kidnappers allegedly involved in Ido incident.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss stunning crude oil theft.
So a story is told about a wanderer who was allegedly traveling a long distance to another land. It was for him a very tortuous journey that sapped all out of him, leaving him tired, weak, but most unfortunately thirsty. But in a short while, as the story goes, the traveler found what he wanted the most, etched in the rocks: water. But there was a problem. How does he fetch some of the water to drink? Well, that posed a very serious challenge, but eventually he was able to make it, to take a sip, and then resigned, of course, his fate. However, he continued his journey dissatisfied.
Well, sounds compelling and interesting at the same time, Claire. But sadly, that could best describe Nigeria, where crude oil abounds, but the inability to maximize the potentials remains a challenge. And as if that is not enough, oil theft has become a menace plaguing the system, with many referring to Nigeria as the world's capital.
Of course, Victor, you know, that story, it's like when, you know, we were searching, you know, during the 60s or the 50s, before oil was discovered, you know, Nigeria was obviously looking for, you know, ways to augment her economy, and then boom, you know, we got, yes, the oil boom, and then we're happy, you know, we made a lot of revenue, generated a lot of revenue, and we're satisfied, but then we laid back, you know, and exactly. So that's how that story, you know, resonates with Nigeria. But of course, we know that crude oil is ours to enjoy, but the wanton selfishness of some individuals shortchanges the whole country. The commodity is stolen, not just in Nigeria though, but here it is done on an unprecedented scale, eating deep into the nation's revenue, and sources claim that the loss could be up to 400,000 barrels per day. Of course, that was between 2017 and 2021. Now, the Nigeria Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, NTA, records that about 4.3 trillion naira worth of crude oil was stolen in over 7,000 pipeline vandalism cases across the country.
And according to the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, the major hotspots for crude oil theft, especially in the Niger Delta, are in Imo, Bayelsa, and Rivers states. Now, many point fingers at security agencies operating in the region as complicit in the illicit operations. At some point, the former National Security Advisor, Babagana Mongono, revealed that the level of sophistication in oil theft operations raises suspicion of collaboration with international actors. Claire.
So many theories about crude oil theft in Nigeria, Victor, but sometime in 2023, during an investigative hearing at the House of Representatives, NTA corroborated that claims by the former NSA, alleging that culprits of oil theft are usually high-profile members of the public, secret agencies, and host communities, unfortunately.
And of course, with that, saddled with the task of reviewing existing architecture and making recommendations to put a stop to these illegalities, Vice President Kashim Shettima and the Nigerian governors have set up committees on crude oil theft and management.
So under the Oil Pipelines Act of 1956, issues of pipeline vandalism and crude oil theft were addressed. So how much of this has changed or has been channeled in finding light, the usual light at the end of the tunnel? Or should I say, how long do we grope? How long do we have to grope and yearn for what is within our reach? Just like the wanderer, you know? We take a look, a critical look at crude oil theft in Nigeria on today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. And as the saying goes, what you're looking for in your Sokoto trouser, or your Sokoto is right there in your Sokoto trouser. I'm Claire Adilabu Abdurazak. So, as always, let's go high on Good Morning Nigeria. It's a good drink to start your day, and of course, a good feeling to welcome back my colleague Victor, who of course took some time off to refresh, and indeed he's looking refreshed.
I'm not sure. I didn't think you would realize that I went away. It was so short a time. While you were high the last time on Good Morning Nigeria, I didn't think you would realize that I went away for a short time. Anyway, it's good to be back.
Well, Victor, it doesn't matter how long you go away, but it's always good to take some time off, you know, to refresh. So we welcome you back. We're glad to have you back.
Thank you very much, Claire. I'm Victor. As a Good Morning Nigeria, it broadcasts live on the network service of the NTA. We shall also talk about the new travels order issued by President Bola Tinubu to cut cost of governance. In a moment, we will begin with highlights of the morning news, then business news, and sometime later, newspaper review. Let's now join Zinret Dingmun for highlights of the morning news. Hello, Zinret.
Hello, Victor, Claire. Good morning and welcome to the morning news. 100 female farmers drawn from 5 states in southeast Nigeria are set to benefit from a 50 million naira empowerment grant under the Renewed Hope Initiative Women Agricultural Support Program, WASP. National Chairman of RHI and Nigeria's First Lady, Oluremi Tinubu, announced this alongside other key intervention programs of the initiative for year 2024 during a meeting with wives of state governors at the villa.
Each, we will soon be launching the Young Farmers Club in public schools across the nation. The initiative is to encourage farming among our young people.
Meanwhile, the Nigeria Governors Forum has kicked against reintroduction of central bank's Anchor Borrowers program and said all government interventions should be channeled to the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. Chairman of the Forum and Kwara State Governor Abdurrahman Abdurazak said this as he led the governors to Federal Ministry of Agriculture.
Is that in West Africa, food in Nigeria is the cheapest in West Africa. And our neighbors are using our food to trade. They're taking our soybeans and other stuff back to make foreign exchange for themselves.
And that the state is participating to the last mile of the entire chain.
Now, in a bid to address Nigeria's cancer burden and improve cancer care, the federal government has now made sufficient funds available for the establishment of comprehensive cancer centers across the 6 geopolitical zones. Minister of State for Health, Dr. Tunji Alausa, disclosed this at a World Cancer Day symposium, where steps aimed at eliminating multiple taxation in the pharmaceutical industry also came to the fore. And Commissioner of Police FCT Benneth Igwe has paraded 6 suspected kidnappers allegedly involved in the Ido incident. 20-year-old Buhari Muhammad is the alleged leader of the suspected 4 boys and 2 girls syndicate.
I am back and we are going to hit the ground running. FCT is no longer a safe haven for robbers.
And those are the news highlights for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Victor and Claire after this break.
Welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service. It's time to talk some business now, and for that we'll join Comfort Amodu.
The Nigerian steel sector is considered a game changer and an avenue to drive industrialization, contribute to gross domestic product, and create jobs, including reducing capital flight and more pathways to sustaining the economy, with the government developing a roadmap to shape the future of the steel industry through strategic policy development, investment and funding.
You can't do some of these things and attract some of these investments without the right incentives. They will build a power plant that will have excess power that can now be even supplied to the local communities. So you have, resultant effects, multiplier effects, community development, all those good things.
No country industrializes without self-sufficiency or close to self-sufficiency in cement and steel.
They say the creation of a conducive environment for investments and appropriate steel development policies and sanctions will minimize corruption in the steel industry. Meanwhile, the African Development Bank, AFDB, is accelerating the pace of economic development in Africa as stakeholders advocate collective action and collaboration with the private sector towards deploying policies that will address the challenges of climate and green growth, funding and investment to enable Africa feed itself.
We need to raise, as we said, at least $50-something billion for climate adaptation, and maybe even $100 billion per year for climate adaptation in Africa. So we are taking that fund to the market, using the equity that we have accumulated in it to raise an additional $27 billion. All that $27 billion when raised will be used to support the least developed countries that are most vulnerable to climate change to be able to deploy it for adaptation. So the African Development Bank has put down a down payment of $12.5 billion towards the AAP. What we are trying to raise is to raise the balance of the $12.5 billion.
FX inflows into the Nigerian economy in the third quarter of 2023 reduced by 3% year-on-year to $16.5 billion. The recent CBN's quarterly statistical bulletin shows that the total value of foreign exchange inflow into Nigerian's economy contracted by 1%, with little growth in both second and fourth quarter of 2022. At the equities market, sentiments were bearish, following a losing streak of 436.97 billion naira, with trades declining by 0.73%, and the year-to-date at 38.63%, with trades ending at 841.55 million naira, valued at more than 19 billion naira. The New York Stock Exchange, New York Community Bank shares also declined, following a downgrade ratings by FITEC and price target cut by brokerage Citigroup. The bank's shares had plunged nearly 45% in 2 days after reporting a surprise fourth quarter loss due to high provisions tied to its commercial real estate. With business news, Comfort Amodu.
Right, many thanks for the business news, Comfort Amodu. And up next is newspaper review.
Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria, and newspaper reviewer Chukwudi Lugbaja is right here with us. Chukwudi, good morning.
Hello, Claire. How are you doing today?
I'm having my cup of tea.
You're nursing your cup of tea.
Yeah. It's quite cold.
It's a precious baby. It's just that you're downing it. Hello, Victor. Good to see you.
You were out of stock for a little while.
Did you notice?
Why would I not notice?
Which of the stock?
I just took a stroll and
you're handsome and healthy looking enough.
Took a stroll for some hours.
They've cut your time on paper review, so you let's better get at it. Victor, you want to start with your Daily Trust?
Okay, let me begin then with the Daily Trust. Just immediately after the nameplate, you have, after Supreme Court victory, Fintiri vows to prosecute suspended Adamawa Rex allies. That's on page 13. And next to it, harsh forex reforms will strengthen Naira. That's according to CBN Governor Cardoso. And after that, we are reminded of the semi-final encounter between Nigeria and South Africa. Of course, that's tomorrow. And a major headline here, protest rocks Niger over cost of living. With the riders, Jigawa, Taraba residents want food prices controlled. Students demand action, say inflation threat to education. And Kanu governor to meet president over hardship. And finally, on that, seek help to address situation, Labour Party tells Tinubu. Hard times over soon, says the First Lady. This is on page 4. And then there is that picture story. Residents of Mina in Niger State protesting against the high cost of living. And finally, but by no means the least, many passengers abducted on Kogi Abuja Highway. That's at the bottom of the Daily Trust. And then you have some other just little police protesters clash in Senegal over postponement of presidential polls. That's on page 13. Nigeria repatriates 18 Cameroonian illegal migrants from Benue, page 7. And EFCC arrests General Overseer over alleged 1.3 billion naira fraud. Chukudi, I don't know. Not sure which
no, not yet. Not
okay,
yet.
Not before.
Not yet. We have the pilot. I didn't want to pilot the affairs this morning. All right, let's quickly take a look at the pilot newspaper. And almost all the stories that Victor read are also carried on the front page. But the headliner says, Fubara's loyalists remain in custody, and it comes with 1, 2, 3, 4 riders there. CBN uncovers $2.4 billion invalid forest claims, says Cardoso. Details of that is on page 5. There are other stories trending at the foot of the paper. Federal government finally bans alcoholic beverages in small sachet. And NAV air strikes neutralize several terrorists, destroy Katsina enclave. Killings, Bayelsa government sues for peace between Kabiama and Amatolo communities. And Akwa Ibom ex-militants allege marginalization, seek probe of PAP. EFCC arrests General Overseer over alleged 1.3 billion naira fraud. And above, just a little below the nameplate, armed herdsmen kill 10 persons in Otukpo community in Benue. And women, youth protest hunger, high cost of living, block roads in Mina. And just to elaborate on the story about the abduction of passengers of 2 Abuja-bound buses in Kogi, the pilot, says that the incident happened somewhere on a very, on a very lonely road in Kogi State. That's the vehicles were coming from the east, involving GIG, that's God is Good, and ABC vehicle. And Chukwudi, I think we should start on that, because yesterday, when the story broke, ABC had to, come out with a publication. Apparently, the story was that, ABC passengers, had been abducted. So ABC had to come out to give clarification on the exact number of passengers, that were kidnapped. But again, we are dealing with another kidnap.
You see, you have finally, got to the real top, the crux of the matter. Whether it's 50, whether it's 100, whether it's 1. somebody has been kidnapped. And that should continue to give us a cause for worry, because it doesn't tell us that all's well within the polity. As we keep on saying, we all have to work at it. We all have to really do a lot of work, not just leave it to the police, the security people, to curtail, if not completely stamp out. We have to do something about the trend kidnapping has assumed in this country. It's not right at all. It's not.
I'm worried particularly that if air tickets have been priced out of the hands of the common man and the roads become this unsafe, so people will start moving. How many people
can escape into the air?
I was frightened yesterday because a lot of people who travel, especially down the eastern side, now do so, by road, and because some of those passengers are traders, who, of course, go with their goods. Why I raised the issue of the clarification made by ABC is because, as journalists, if we are not sure of numbers, then let's not put a number.
You don't quote.
Yes, you don't quote.
Yes.
We must be accurate and give the right information, to the public. Because when you say passengers, and ABC has luxury buses, so you can imagine the number of people, in a luxury bus.
Okay, you have to ensure that people don't think that they took them in swarms as well. Just because of the number that the luxury bus,
I panicked when I heard that.
I agree with you.
Yes, until I now read that, okay, it's a smaller bus.
Perhaps it was targeted.
It said 2 passengers and the driver, and all that. I really panicked because I was wondering, will children be involved again? Will women and all that? So it's, and Chukwudi, I also think that people who are traveling now, especially those vehicles that are plying those lonely roads, should not go, in single. They should go in convoy. They should try and go in convoy, because there were just 2 of these buses, plying that lonely road.
There's no such convoy.
No. Perhaps if usually they go in, these buses try to go in convoy. They wait for one another.
Claire,
commercial vehicles.
Yes,
Claire.
In the past. Yes,
Claire.
Yes.
If you go in 50 cars, or there's 17 buses, when the first shot is fired,
others will turn and go.
Some people will even run into the bush, into the hands of abductors.
You see, it will be something. It will provide
maybe you're
some
talking
sort
about
of deterrent.
a patrol accompanying some of the vehicles now, because they're really getting to a note of alarm over these abductions. Look at the Ekiti children who were taken. One of them told the parent that the driver was killed in the bush because he could not supply the telephone number of his wife and the school proprietor. How would you expect the poor driver to know that? Maybe his wife's number he could have, but not everybody knows. Some people don't know their bank account numbers. I hate it when I ask him, and what's your account number?
Even your
and they say they can't tell you
the number plate of your car sometimes.
Sure.
I mean, but it's unfortunate. Honestly, it's becoming frightening by the day, and I just pray and I just hope that something
has to give.
Yes, something has to give.
Something has to give.
I don't know what to put it. It's going to another level entirely.
Yes.
For those of us who are still free and roaming around and hoping that things will get better as government tries to tackle a very harsh economy, this is a bit relevant because they are saying that the protest has rocked Niger over cost of living. 4 days ago, I went to the market. A bag of rice I bought for 53,000 2 weeks to December was sold for 63,000. 10,000 had been added within a space of 1.5 months.
I don't know which of these papers. I can't remember now. I can't remember now. If you were here, one of the papers we reviewed sometime last week had a very graphic, picture of the prices, And
they actually went tabular about, the different areas of concern.
And I remember also saying that, see, the spate of kidnappings now could also have been fueled by, the rate of poverty.
It's clearly part of it.
Yes, because
although you can never
justify
hope to convince God when you get to the gate of heaven or hell,
precisely,
and you say, "I did it because I was hungry."
But Chukwudi, let's we must look at the empirical triggers. The empirical enablers, enablers.
I'm not quarreling with it.
Because today you find people, framing their own kidnap. I mean,
and you also find family members
kidnapping,
arranging
exactly.
People who feign their own kidnap, Claire, are not just naughty by nature; they are criminal by nature. How can you feign your own kidnap? That's a different level entirely. I don't think that is excusable.
It's happened before.
It has happened.
And
it will still happen.
Dealt with,
but I'm saying a man or woman
that
fakes his or her kidnap, something is wrong with that person.
All right, let's also, it's a story that is not here in any of the papers, but of course it trended yesterday. That's about King Charles, being diagnosed with cancer.
Unspecified form of cancer. They said a form of cancer.
But sometime, I think before he was taken to the hospital.
Benign prostate.
Exactly.
That's what they went for.
Benign
prostate means it's not malignant, but there's a prostate there, quite all right.
And
that one does not quite make you go nuts over, but doctors
and they were quick to rule out prostate cancer. It wasn't that, but they couldn't tell us which exactly.
They said a form of cancer. Royalty does not. King Charles has been a bit expressive. Come to think of it,
they've revealed even too much.
Quite, they don't want you to panic. We're in charge.
There's something.
It doesn't show panic and all that. What sort of training do they get?
There's something just before we go.
Watch them.
Just before we go, Chukwudi, again talking about being accurate and factual. In the way we present.
Well, there's nothing accurate about the spelling of passengers.
Exactly.
On the front page of Daily Trust.
And also,
I'm mentioning this because I want to say to Daily Trust editors, you're doing a wonderful job. Homer, they say sometimes not. It means even the best make mistakes.
Yes.
But please, Daily Trust,
that's my excuse. Yes.
Needs to be.
Yes, because someone drew my attention, to this issue. That when, for instance, an MDA is being investigated or is, summoned by, the National Assembly for investigation, over probable, alleged issues and all that, that usually it's always the PAMSEC that is being reported, or the Permanent Secretary that is being reported as, having committed the crime. So someone was like, you journalists should know the difference. When an MDA, is being invited, you understand what I'm saying, to answer for a query, and that the PAMSEC, who is the, head,
well,
it's automatically responsible,
Yeah, the buck stops.
The alarm is
sounding. A minister would not steal money if somebody up there
does not teach him how to do it
and
aid him in doing that. Yeah. But let's leave you here, Chukwudi. I think the bells are ringing, the alarms are sounding. We have to let you go. Thank you very much, as always, for taking our time to do this review.
Thanks a lot, ladies and gentlemen.
And thank you for agreeing with me.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a break now.
All right, welcome back to the program. It's Good Morning Nigeria, if you've just joined us. And it's happening live right here on the network service of the NTA. So, to begin our conversation on crude oil theft and how to find an end to it, let's listen to this background report. It was compiled by our correspondent, Abdul Salam Chuprel.
On January 15, 1956, Oloibiri, a small community in Abuja local government area in Bayelsa State, became Nigeria's first commercial oil discovery. 2 years later, the country exported her first crude oil from the Oloibiri oil field. Since then, Nigeria has become the largest oil and gas producer in Africa, with the country's petroleum classified mostly as light and sweet, and is currently the largest producer of sweet oil in the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. Experts note that crude oil sales is a major contributor to the country's revenue, contributing over 85% to the nation's coffers. OPEC's January 2024 monthly oil market report shows that Nigeria experienced a significant surge in crude oil output, rising by 7.7% in December 2023. Other analysts note that the country's oil production reached 1.4 million barrels per day in December, reflecting a 100,000 barrels per day increase from the previous month. They maintain that this rise brings Nigeria closer to meeting its 2024 budget oil production benchmark of 1.78 million barrels per day. The World Bank, however, noted that oil production in the country remains subdued, blaming it on crude oil theft. In April last year, the Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, (NITI), says Nigeria lost about 620 million barrels of crude oil, valued at $46 billion between 2009 and 2020. In November, NITI further revealed that more than 4.3 trillion naira worth of crude oil was stolen in 7,143 pipeline vandalism cases within a period of 5 years. They also note that the stolen oil is often refined locally or sold on the black market, robbing the country of vital revenue that could be invested in infrastructure development and social welfare programs. While a 2022 UN report insists that crude oil is the largest stolen natural resource in the world, what mechanisms can be put in place towards stemming the tide in Nigeria and channel the much-needed revenues to developmental initiatives? These will form the crux of discussions as guests speak to crude oil theft and its attendant consequences shortly.
All right, thank you very much, Abdulsalam Jibril, for the report. And seated right here with us in the studio is Patrick Abambo. He is a public safety and security analyst. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
All right, we also have joining us via Zoom, Dennis Amakri. And Dennis Amakri is the Assistant Director, DSS, and of course he's retired and is also a security consultant, oil and gas. Mr. Amakri, thank you very much for finding time to join us on this program.
Good morning.
All right, and from Opata Kingdom, joining us via Zoom, we have His Royal Majesty, Dr. Felix Otuwarikpo. He's the Eze Opata III in Ahoda River State. Your Royal Majesty, thank you again for joining us on the program.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, so I would like to start from the studio here, and I'd like to start with Mr. Agbambo, who's a public safety and security analyst. You know, just searching through the internet. In fact, it came to me as a shock when I discovered that Tantita, I think that's Tompolo, government Tompolo's company, and one other company, you know, that are providing some form of security for, you know, pipelines and all that, had discovered that somewhere in Oguta, these oil theft criminals also mount CCTV on trees, plus mortar, whatever. It said mortar launchers and defense systems also mounted just to, show the security agencies, yes, and all that. It seems they have taken this thing, higher notch. They've become more and more sophisticated. Are we in a helpless situation?
No, we're not in a helpless situation. It's seriously, we are not in a helpless. All we need is putting our acts together, getting the strong political will, and buying the community into the fight against crude oil theft. That is the solution we need. It's a gigantic industry that is talking about the crude oil theft, that is thriving, and those involved in it illegally are trying to protect their quote and unquote assets, or what they consider to be their livelihood. So they go every length to ensure that they get it protected, and they engage a lot of measures to be able to protect what they are doing, engaging some of the community members to provide information. They carry out intelligence, insider connivance, a lot of things. So, but all we need is a whole of society approach, political will by the political leaders themselves, and getting the arts together.
No, but I'm worried. You see, in all of this, when you say, getting everybody on board to get this checked, the problem becomes that when you deploy security agencies to deal with the situation, they become co-opted. In fact, when you move them away from there, the next one going there sees it as lucrative posting. And so it goes on and on, because it couldn't have been done without, like you said, connivance of everybody involved, virtually all the agencies involved in it, which is what you find those in the know to say.
Yeah, I understand the angle, but it's me, for instance, I tend to a little bit shift from the backwater oil theft that we talk about, the incident in Ahoda, what's it called, Uguta, and all those other areas, because I've visited so many of them. But the largest quantum of oil that has been stolen is stolen at the point of loading. It's carried out by a bigger group of persons that have international connections, international links, with a lot of backings, and with heavy motor tanker vessels loading tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of crude oil daily basis, stolen daily. So that is actually my biggest concern. This backwater oil theft suspects, or so to say, yes, it's bad enough, but I think that if we can tackle the main players, the big players, then this one will be taken care of easily.
Okay, let me bring Mr. Dennis Amakri, of course, who is a DSS retired, but is now a security consultant, oil and gas. And if we consider the oil production benchmark for 2024, and then we'll look at the modalities for meeting up that production quota for us. Curbing oil theft or crude oil theft will be one of those areas. And the Punch reported that in October last year, in 1 week of October last year alone, over 149 indeed incidents of crude oil theft was recorded across the Niger Delta in 1 week alone. I mean, how feasible, if this continues, because I don't know what it is now, how feasible will this be for us to meet this production quota?
Thank you very much for having me. You see, we are looking at it from a prison which is very narrow. The oil theft business, the criminal enterprise around oil theft is very big. Very, very big. Big in the sense that the kind of money that is coming out of this particular enterprise is so much that those who are involved, and the people involved are very powerful people, very rich people. And what is involved here is one that, they can fight back. They don't have to, be scared, because it has been going on for so many years. Our production quota, I don't think we can meet it. For 10 years, our production quota, even last year, supposed to be 1.7 million barrels.
Good morning. Fine boy. How you doing, my brother? I was calling you. I was saying, you know,
we do apologize for that interference from the end of Dennis Amakre. We will return to him, but first let's welcome Yabagisani, who just joined in our conversation right now. Yabagisani, thank you very much for joining us, and compliments of the season. I'm seeing you for the first time this year.
Happy New Year.
Yes.
Good morning, Nigerians. Thank you.
Well, I think we should head back. I'm not sure if that's cleared up, so that we can go to our order and speak with the Ezopata if it's there now. All right. Well, not too early to welcome Yabagisani.
Yeah.
And the issue at hand is the oil theft and how we can stem this. What are your thoughts, given the scale of oil theft and its impact on the economy of the country?
Well, thank you very much. I believe that there is what you can call an industry capture, as far as the oil and gas industry is concerned in Nigeria. There are fundamental issues which is known to the operators of the industry, but because they understand the fact that the government itself, one, is not organized in a manner to be able to ensure that the crude oil theft we are talking about does not take place at the rate it's taking place, or is organized but is also compromised, from top to the bottom. And I say this because if you listen to, let me begin by what the CBN governor said yesterday. I listened to him. He said people are blaming them for the foreign exchange rate. They have left the fiscal policies aspect of the whole thing. They are only concentrating on the monetary policy. CBN, CBN, CBN. CBN does not generate dollars. It is the government, the fiscal policies that generate dollars, because government owns the facilities that generate dollars, meaning that government is the owner of NNPC. Even if they say NNPC, NNPCL today, government is one that gives license to those who operate in the upstream, downstream, midstream of the sector. This is where the dollars are coming from. So why are Nigerians not talking about where the money is coming from, but they are talking about somebody who keeps the money? What is happening? So the fiscal side of the issue is the problem. I listened to this chap Rouhani yesterday. Yep. He says there are structural problems. That's why the naira cannot find its right value, and there is issue of leakages in the system. So everybody that is in this country who is familiar with what we are talking about, the economy, the oil and gas sector, knows where the problem is coming from. And to my utter surprise also, when Mr. President came on board, he announced the removal of fuel subsidy. Yes, but what about the structural issues, which is the root cause of the subsidy mismanagement itself? What has happened to the managers of that subsidy?
How does this relate to crude oil theft?
Crude oil theft, of course, it's related to crude oil, because if you do not manage the industry itself, this is not a Nigerian industry, oil and gas sector. It's not operated by, when we're talking about crude oil theft, it's not operated by Nigerians. The kind of structure arrangement we have, the operation arrangement we have, is that you sign agreement with international oil companies who operate these facilities. And these international oil companies are well informed about what is happening. The least informed partner in that arrangement, who in fact is the lion's share, the government, is the one that does not even understand what is happening, because its agents are compromised. That is Nigerians who are working in that industry. They are compromised. We must know that.
But how many times, if you say that the companies, you know, should know, several times most of the oil companies have been forced to activate force majeure, and that's because of the impact of the crude oil theft. And those that are committing this theft are Nigerians, and probably, as Mr. Patrick here said, some accomplices.
No.
You don't agree?
You have to understand the ownership of the crude oil itself. What comes to the government as the owner of the crude oil is that there are two sources aside from the sales of the crude oil itself. Mm-hmm. You have the royalties. Royalties come from the production, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Today, we don't have a policy as to where to measure even production itself. Every company declares its production quantity wherever he wants, whenever they want. And as a policy, you know, in the first place, you don't even know your actual production, because the physical measurement of the crude oil itself is not known to us. I'm talking about the hydrocarbon flow. You know, the physical flow of hydrocarbon is not known to Nigerians. So we don't know how much we are producing, you know. And also, the hydrocarbon financial flow is not also known. So it is the most opaque industry you can ever find in Nigeria. That's why when you're talking about force majeure, all these things, who loses? Who is loser? Nigeria. The IOCs are smarter than you. That's why they don't allow you to declare, you know, your production at the production field. They wait until you come to the terminals where you have the facilities. That is when you want to export to the outside world. It is then they introduce what they call net back policy. Then they introduce something that will tell you, they forget about what we have produced. What we are seeing here, that is why we are going to calculate our production. What about what has been lost from the oil well to the gathering fields until it comes to the terminal that's 1,000 kilometers away from the well heads?
Okay, Engineer,
yes,
I just want you to round off your thoughts on, you know, who has the liability? Government. Okay. You asked Amakri a question earlier.
Yes, I wanted to go to, okay, Amakri. Okay. Now let me ask. I don't know, what do we know from your end, given your background as an intelligence officer, what do we know about the magnitude of the theft, so that we begin to drive home the point? What do we know? And how is this brought about?
Very much for that. In fact, when the last speaker was talking, I was actually smiling, because between us here now, I can say it very, very clearly that Nigeria does not know how many barrels of oil it produces in a day. It doesn't. And the theft, the last time I was here, in fact, the MD of an NPC was here, and we were talking about crude theft. And of course, it was mentioned here that many people were saying that, oh, it is the communities that are busting the pipelines and stealing. No, that is just infinitesimal. The theft is carried out at the FPSOs, where they load the tankers that go overseas. And as they load it there, nobody knows, because what is happening is that they are compromised. Both the DPR that is there, the security agencies that are there, the company officials that are there, all are compromised. They are so compromised that they don't even know when the pumping is going on. But they will be there. After they finish, everybody's happy, they go away. So we really don't know how much we are losing per day. Because remember, we used to have our dollar rate. Now we hook everything to the dollar rate now. Nigeria was enjoying a very low dollar rate, and now it has gone up to 1,500. It is still the same oil industry that we were depending on. So what is the change? What happened?
Mr. Macri, sorry, Mr. Macri, let me take you a little back because you've said something that we don't have proof to, because you said some of the security agencies are compromised within the process. Can you substantiate that?
You can only substantiate it if the president have to set up a committee to go out on the FPSOs, the offshore platforms where crude is pumped, or even on Bonny terminal. Let them hydrocarbon accounting. That's where we have problems. That's where we have problems. You know, and these things are pumped. And remember, the Navy itself went and arrested a tanker with 3 million barrels of oil. Where do you think it came from? You know, if we want to substantiate, I think that's a place to check, because that particular amount of oil that was in that tanker was not accounted for, but it was leaving the country when it was arrested. You know, so we have to be very, very serious when we want to, you know, investigate this particular issue, because the country is losing, they said 400,000. How do we know that it is 400,000 barrels a day? You know, how can we substantiate that? And I can tell you it's more than that. You know, so it's a cartel, a serious mafia that has held this country hostage.
Very much. But I wanted clarity on some of the points that you have made. Of course, we can assume that the declared figures are minimum. All right? They are minimum because, like you said, it's more than that. Well, maybe those could not be accounted for exactly. But how I had mentioned earlier that even when you pull out a security personnel from the fillers that we get, if you pull out a security personnel from that point and introduce another person to check, he begins to see it as lucrative posting. And so it's the same problem over and over and over again. From your perspective, again, as a security person, how do you think that this can be checked properly from whatever point that this begins to occur?
You know, many security personnel believe that going to the Niger Delta to go and work in the oil fields there, either as security men to guard pipelines or whatever, is a lucrative position. Some people actually have known situations where security people bribe their supervisors to send them there because they believe that if they go there, within 6 months, they'll buy a car. You know? So the important thing we have to do is to monitor our oil technologically. Saudi Arabia is doing it. I don't know why we cannot do it. The NNPC itself has a control room where it shows all the oil fields and all the tankers that are loading and traveling in and out of Nigeria. But one thing it does not do is to tell how many, what's the quantity of oil in each of them. Saudi Arabia, Aramco, has a control room where it monitors every drop of oil, right from when it is drilled out of the ground to when it is exported out of the country. And it is accounted for, all of them. So there is no kind of human error where, you send people there and they want to play games. So it is very, very important. The only way we can stem this crude oil theft in Nigeria is to resort to technology.
Mr. Macri, we'll return to you to elaborate on that, but we come back to the studio where Mr. of course Patrick Agambo is, and I was going through some of your responses some time ago, and you did of course applaud the increment that we've been able to make when you compare to what we used to produce in terms of our production capacity. But you also talked about the, enablers of this criminal crude oil, theft. Again, we cannot rule out complicity and connivance. But if we do not have things enabling these people, emboldening these people, to commit the crime, I don't think we'll be where we are today. I would like for you to expatiate on those enablers, things that are really, that we should, close in, that we are not doing.
Yeah, thank you very much. About slightly over 2 years ago, I decided to take particular interest in monitoring what is happening in this crude oil theft industry, I would call it, and visited several. Even I just came back from the Niger Delta 3 days ago to refresh and find out what really is happening. I will tell you that these enablers are, until these things are eliminated, we cannot. And one of the culprits, I would say, is the NNPC itself. And because they have not done what they should do, the government should critically look into what is happening between the NNPC and the loading point. The Nigerian upstream petroleum regulatory agencies also should be able to tell the Nigerians and the Nigerian government what is happening. Let me tell you one thing that is quite worrisome. So to say, the Nigerian government agency, security agency that is empowered by the Constitution to monitor these vessels, intercept them, arrest them, that is the Nigerian Navy, does not have presence at the loading point. So they don't know how money is loaded in all these vessels. As we speak, they don't. There's no physicality.
What should NNPC do that it's not doing? Because
some of the personnel of NNPC, of Nigerian Navy, were trained to be able to understand what is happening at the loading point, but they were not deployed. They were not given permission, no authorization for them to be there. Now, for instance, a vessel comes in with authorization to load, say, about 800,000 barrels of crude oil. And the vessel has a capacity to load about 1.6. And he goes off. He loads and he goes, he could load the 1.6 to fill the capacity.
So nobody to monitor whether or not.
Nobody to monitor. It's between the NNPC officials, the NUPROC, the IOCs, all those that are there. But the security agency that is charged to monitor, intercept, Nigerian Navy scored a good point. By last year, they arrested MT Idu that loaded the 3 million barrels and was taken off, because there is a Falcon Eye system that monitors the movement of these ships, but they did not know the quantity. The only suspicion is that it diverted direction. It was supposed to go and it went somewhere else. And that was when the personnel of the Nigerian Navy went after it. But it has already passed the Nigerian shores. So they contacted the Gulf of Guinea group, the team, which they are member and in fact playing a leading role. And it was intercepted in Equatorial Guinea and Sao Tome and Principe. And it was brought back to Nigeria. But the shocking aspect of it is that people were lobbying to allow this vessel to go. Nigerians particularly. And in these vessels, you have no quantity could be measured because nobody gave account. But there was no authorization. The diversion, yes, you loaded, you have, but you're diverting it somewhere else. But the joy was that the Nigerian Navy, and of course the Nigerian Navy and do not have the power to prosecute, but through NNPC and EFCC and other agencies, they pleaded for a plea bargain, and they were made to pay and they returned this quantity of crude oil to the country. What I'm saying now is that is one that has enabled these people to do it. Imagine if they have succeeded. So many are succeeding every day because nobody can give account. Yes, he pointed it out. From the point of the production to the point of loading, yes, there are some pipelines that have been intercepted, crude oils, but to me, I'm more worried about the large quantities that goes international And some of these enablers, I would say, is that one is most of the private refineries globally are the ones that are encouraging this behind the door theft of the crude oil, because government to government transactions does not encourage this.
It's legal, okay?
And that is the biggest problem. Last year in May, we had a symposium in South Africa where we had the Gulf of Guinea navies and the Southern African navies to deliberate what are the challenges, the common challenges they are having. And this is what came up, that it's a big problem within. Angola was crying, Nigeria crying, most of these countries were crying because of this, and all boys are to international empowerment, but fueled by local individuals but big-time businessmen who support and make sure that this thing goes without inhibition. What I'm saying is that government must do the needful by allowing the security agency that should be able to be there. Now, Tita and another security company have been empowered to help to protect, but those are the backwaters. Yes, every day we celebrate arrest of these and that. Okay, it's good. But to me, the 400,000 barrels that are being stolen, I will tell you that more than 80% of that are being stolen from the loading points, loading terminals, which nobody can really account for. And that is the biggest problem. Communities themselves in the Niger Delta, we must say, thank God we have the Eze there. The Eze there, he will confirm that most of them have been crying because these people, NNPC and others, have not even brought the communities to understand that this oil we're talking about is like our commonwealth. Most of the communities believe it's their own wealth. It's their also they enable all this theft to go on without disturbance.
Okay, I think we should just allow you to take a breather and bring in the Eze, Victor. Yes.
All right, I can see the Ezupata is ready for us. Your Majesty, we've talked a lot about the economic implications of crude oil theft, but I know that there is the social aspect of it. There's social impact, there is the which involves conflict, degradation, and all of that. What exactly is the impact being felt in your community, which is Riverine?
As a matter of fact, the issue of crude oil theft has been a major headache to the communities. We have tried to reach out to the IOCs. We have reached out to the security agencies. We have done all as communities to mitigate some of these problems. The government cannot deny the fact that when these oil thefts are allowed, especially in communities, it creates a lot of security challenges. Most of what we are going through today in terms of small arms and light weapons proliferation has to do with with oil thefts along the pipelines. And our environment too has been completely destroyed. We now rely on food from outside our domains. The agricultural sector has been completely destroyed. An area that has relied purely on agriculture and fishery, we can no longer, feed ourselves from local production because of the activities of all these vandals. And unfortunately, like one of the guests, rightly stated, most of these activities have been, powered by security agencies that are posted to stop the crime in the first place. We cannot pretend that we don't know what is going on. The security agencies are directly involved. I would request the NTA to come and carry out a district investigation in communities, and you will see the shameful act of those who are paid to protect these facilities. The level of their involvement in these acts will shock you. And when you speak out as a community leader, there are situations where most of these boys are sponsored to come and attack the palaces and to some extent even kill the traditional rulers. The records are there. But let me just say, what are the remedies? So long we continue to place so much emphasis on crude oil, we'll continue to get it wrong. All this talk about theft and all that will continue. Why is United Arab Emirates not...
Just before you go into, the remedies, we do not have any of the, security agents here with us to defend or to, disprove what the claims that you have made. But I remember some time ago, the former Chief of Defense Staff was asked this question. And his response was that, the military had not received any reports. But of course, he did not rule out, some form of, conspiracy and complicity and all that. But the manner in which you are portraying the involvement or alleged involvement of the security agents, we do not have any of them here to discount that. But let me ask you again, in NATI's report, concerning crude oil theft, I want to quote a particular point. NATI said there seems to be a community of complicity and conspiracy of silence, especially among the host communities and the leadership of the host communities. Sometimes they are the ones that even give these criminals, you understand, the intels, the information, even when security agents are coming for raids. I remember in Port Harcourt, along the LMA axis, I can count the number of illegal refineries, when we went on raid. The number of illegal refineries along that area that were destroyed. But before you know it, they spring up again. So how can you respond as the traditional ruler of Upata in Ahoda? I know there are modular refineries, refining ports along your area. So how do you respond to the alleged conspiracy of silence from host communities?
As a matter of fact, if I have an opportunity, I will give to your station the reports we have submitted to security agencies over time. In Opata Kingdom, we don't tolerate this pipeline vandalism. NATI cannot sit in their offices and concoct reports to indict communities. That is what they are saying. I cannot say it does not affect some other communities, but it's not all communities. There are communities that don't tolerate this pipeline vandalism. We don't allow it in Opata Kingdom. And like I said, let those that are paid to protect the pipeline infrastructure do their job. They should do their job. You will be surprised that, like the former officer from the DSS said, most people are, find their way, they lobby their way to work in these pipeline surveillance activities. They lobby their way. If it is not lucrative, why are they doing it? I would like a situation where you bring in any security chief to the studio and let us debate this issue. I will come with facts and figures to support what I'm talking about. These things are happening. Nobody can deny it. But they usually pour the blames on communities and community leaders. Because we don't have the power to go to press to defend ourselves. And so they write reports and indict communities. If government agencies insist that this should not be done, they have the power, they have the resources, they have the manpower to stop pipeline vandalism. Why are they not doing it?
Let's leave it there for now. We'll come back to you. Your Royal Majesty, we will get back to you, but let's come right back in the studio here where Bagisani has been listening to the contributions of other panelists on this program. Now, you've heard all there is. You have also spoken earlier about the root causes and how it could be stemmed. But beyond the economic factors, the economic consequences of the crude oil theft, how can we manage also the social aspect of it, the security aspect of it? Because there lies a major cause of conflicts, a major cause of poverty, a major cause of hunger, among others.
Yeah. Thank you very much. But I would rather like us to address the source of the problem itself.
By all means, you take all on board.
It's not the effect, because all we are talking about is what is the effect of this, effect of that.
Mm.
I think, you see, like I started saying, oil and gas industry has an international best practice that it operates with in other climes. You know, why are we not imbibing, or why are we not employing the international best practice in Nigeria? Why? International best practice is that you must have a metering infrastructure that works. Because if you can't measure, you can't monitor or even control. Today, our oil and gas sector, we do not have a reliable metering infrastructure. As far back as 1999 or 2009, was it? I conducted a study for 90 on the metering infrastructure in the upstream, midstream, and downstream sector of the oil and gas industry. And like others before us, you know, came up with that this is not the infrastructure you have there is substandard. In some areas, you don't even have meters where you should have meters. And these are international organizations that are operating. So the point is this: why don't we? How much does it even cost to acquire meters, ordinary meter, that you are going to put? These studies are there. It's known to the government. Remediation efforts are not being applied. Why? You know. So the issue. That's why I said put it at the doorstep of the government. You know, because solutions are there. You have to be able to measure before you can monitor, before you can control, before you can say this one has information or this doesn't have information. You know. So from the wellheads, today we don't have flow meters. Multi-flow meters have been discovered. You know, I remember that, you know, in the University of Port Harcourt, as far back as 20 years or so, you know, years ago, invented, you know, multi-flow meters. And they tested it, it was working. Multi-flow means that it will separate at the wellheads for you the debris, the water, the gas, the oil. It will tell you approximately what you are supposed to have. Today we are using temperatures and thermometers and what have you, pressure, to measure what we are coming out, what is coming out of the crude. When other climes have meters that are powered, battery powered, so that you don't need electricity or something there, it sends you information what has come out. It tells you what has reached certain node, what is left, if there is leakage or vandalism, it will tell you.
So why is it difficult for governments to implement? The studies are there.
That is the question. That's the question.
Same government says this is becoming, it's a major problem. And it's government after government.
It's lip service. They are paying big service to the issue, because they are the beneficiaries. They are the one benefiting from disorganized environment.
Can you prove this?
Prove what? All the speakers have said the same thing. The agencies belong to the government. They are benefiting. You know. So the government at the top, and in most cases, it is the president, unfortunately, that should step up to the plate and insist that I must have metering infrastructure, because there's an agency of government that the Constitution has put in place, which is called Waste and Measures Department here. It's called Legal Metrology in other climes. That agency of government is supposed to supervise the metering infrastructure, not only in oil and gas sector alone, but also in other industries. Yeah. But more importantly, in the oil and gas sector, because that is the main source of our revenue. That agency today is in comatose. Can you see how irresponsible we are? To even add sort of injury, what they did was that when they were bringing up this PIA, which says that they are bringing PIA in order to make the industry to be open so that people can know what is happening. They made it more opaque than before. What did they do? They chased out Western measures. They now say that all the NMPC or NUPRC should now issue quantity certificate of accuracy, should also determine quality. Nobody should come into that industry. Hitherto, other agencies were checking. How much stupid can we be as a nation? And they went all over the place, PIA scam. It's a scam, I'm telling you, because I know what happened. When the preliminary was taking place for that PIA in the Senate, I had a cause to talk to, a few days to that time, to a senator. And I told him, look at the PIA, there's a section there that is inimical to the instance of this economy. The senators stood up at the plenary. They called the attention of the Senate President to that clause. The Senate President said, delete it. What got to the Mr. President table, that clause was brought back again.
So what did you do when you realized that the clause?
They've been writing to AG, Accountant General of Federation that time. I know. I told the ministry. I gave them, information, and then how they have written to Accountant General of Federation to call the attention of Mr. President that this is not the right thing to do. Internationally, this is an international organization, that's what I said. So we know what is happening. It's not we don't know. But government at the top level, the presidency, it's not even the ministries, because the ministries are also compromised. The president, who is now feeling the heat, because what is happening is because we are denied those dollars that should come from that sector to fund the activities of the economy. That's what is happening to us.
Okay, Engineer Sani, let's bring in Mr. Amakri into our conversation. And Mr. Amakri, some people are saying, okay, because we've identified 2 areas where, of course, this crime is committed. Mr. Agambu says, of course, the bulk of it is offshore, but there's also the back end water, the theft that go on. So let us look at dealing with the illegal, refining ports and checking the crude oil theft from that end. And some people are suggesting that rather than when you go on such raids, you burn down those areas, you destroy whatever it's there. Why don't you instead, grant, proper, licenses for small modular, refinery to these people? Since these are, not just ordinary people, they are very knowledgeable people, because, I mean, pipeline vandalism and illegal oil theft is not the job of anyhow person. So why don't we just grant, licenses and develop these illegal refining ports as modular, refineries?
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see why what you said is the way to go, but I don't think NMPC is ready to do that, because I don't know, maybe it's against the cartel. I still maintain that there is a cartel that, controls this industry or holding the country to hostage. Because you see, to solve this problem is to go ahead and bring in everybody. The Nigerian government and NPC, the communities, all should come together. Because like Mr. Patrick said, many of the communities believe that it's their oil. You remember the resource control controversy that we had, and truly, this thing is coming from their land. So how do you now come and take it away? They are the ones suffering the spillage. And I can tell you another thing that many people don't know. These pipes, some of them were, laid in the 50s. Many of them are old, rusty. I've gone around into the creeks and we discover that some are so rusty that they spew, oil by themselves. And then, of course, these local people, what do? Either they try to collect it, or they, they call the oil companies to come, and sometimes they don't come. you know. So it is something that if you now decide to say, okay, let us involve everybody. First of all, you have to, give the licenses very well. In fact, I can tell you, if they give licenses to the communities there, remember that these communities they are talking about are very knowledgeable in the oil industry. Not anybody can just tap oil from a pipeline or a gas line. Nobody. You must be knowledgeable. And some of these guys have already worked in the oil industry. They know. Give them licenses so that they can go ahead and then create these modular refineries. And we are worried about Dangote refinery, Port Harcourt refinery, and they are not producing this and that. These modular refineries can produce, and then we don't have to even worry ourselves about, any other importation. And then, of course, it will create jobs. So I agree fully that if they want to, meaningfully, because apparently, I think there is this gain that people are getting, the cartel are getting from the oil that they don't want to open the door for others to come in.
Okay. All right, let's get back. Thank you very much, Mr. Makri. Let's get back to Ezopata right there in Ahoda. I'd like to ask you this because this has also been pointed out as one of the major issues with regards to the oil theft and all that. Many of the high and mighty in rivers, in Niger Delta, so to speak, operate modular refineries, and they use this to siphon the crude, which is part of the problem that the country is facing. How do you react to this, particularly with regards to your own domain?
As a matter of fact, it's a way of giving the dog a bad name in order to hang it. Most of the activities of the oil thefts, like Mr. Makri said, are not even carried out at the community level. The loading points are not located in the communities. Those who are shipping this oil, manipulating the quantity, and they are shipping them out, are not members of the communities. And the facilities that are being used to barge these oils to foreign countries are not domiciled in the communities. Of course, I will agree with you that the technology for pipeline vandalism is not very cheap. And of course, no poor person can effectively go into pipeline vandalism unless areas where there are eruptions from the pipelines because of the old age of the pipelines. And again, the IOCs on their own part have failed to replace some of these old pipelines. And so the facilities we are talking about are not necessarily, a conduit point put in place by indigenes of the Niger Delta to milk the federation. It's not true. But over time, in order to justify the fact that the Niger Delta people are problems of the Niger Delta, of course, there are these conspiracy theories, to malign the Niger Delta region, but if you check the percentage of those who have been arrested through oil theft, almost 80% of them are not from the Niger Delta. And so it is wrong to place this kind of figure, the modular refineries being run by Niger Delta people as a conduit to carry out this program. I don't subscribe to that, and I won't accept it.
Thank you very much. Even though some of your comments have been disputed in the past by those who are in the know, But we'll leave it at that for now. We'll call for a break now. When we return, the conversation continues.
All right, welcome back. And we're discussing crude oil theft and how possible we can stem the menace in our country. And we've been talking about the possibility of converting illegal refining ports scattered here and there across the Niger Delta region into modular refineries. And we did ask the Eze, His Royal Majesty Eze Pata, you know, his thoughts about that. But he said, of course, majority of those who are, you know, carrying out illegal refining are not Niger Delta. I don't know if Mr. Patrick will agree with that, because I personally recall the days in Port Harcourt when, of course, the security agencies will go on raids, and especially from the Ogoni axis to the LMA axis, you'll find very young, you know, energetic young, you know, Niger Deltans who are, you know, knowledgeable in the act and who are running these, you know, refining ports. But is that a solution? Get these boys properly trained, license these illegal refineries into modular refinings, and then put an end to at least the theft from this back end.
Yeah, thank you very much. There's a policy of government that encourages modular refinery, recognized modular refineries, and about 9 of them were licensed. But as we speak, only 3 is operational. The rest are still not ready because
but they're refining crude.
Yeah,
they're not refining crude, they're refining
diesel because it's easier to get diesel. The process to come to the popular petroleum fuel is quite tedious for them, and they still have not been able to perfect that angle. But at least you can cook and get out diesel, which they have a very lucrative market, because most of the hotels and facilities in the Niger Delta are patronizing them, and the hotels have had cause to ask why. They say, look, pour fire, and it's cheaper to buy than to buy the normal well-refined ones and all that. So it's a business that is going on. But the problem is that most of this would not want to be organized by government, because they still see it that it's their business, it's their wealth. The crude is theirs. So why do you want to organize us? Why do you want to bring us together? And now you want us to pay tax. So that is just busy, because we have spoken to some of them. I had privilege to speak to some of them. At one incident when we went, like you pointed out, this time we went to see what is happening, we were being attacked, because by the time we were passing the community to the point, the community people communicated to those people by phone, and they laid siege on us. It was ambush, and they were ready to consume us. So there's nothing we can do here. We must leave. And the community, they connive, because they say that is where they get their source of livelihood. So they are enabling it so much. But again, when you look at it again, like I said earlier, the NNPC and all this, they are part of this deal, because you have some of the abandoned oil wellheads that are not being attended to. So it's easy for them to tap from there. You have some of these people, some of the people who handle this pipeline vandalism and refining of crude were ex-contract staffs of these oil companies. So they know the processes, they know the tools, they know where, and they know the lines where they can tap. They know when particular products will be passing, when the crude is being produced. They know it, because they have insider. You know, there's part of the agreement between the IOCs and the communities. You know, you employ local content, you employ some of their community members who work in some of the places, both skilled and unskilled. But most of the times is on contract. After your contract, you go. And when you stop working, of course, you go into the illegal business aspect of it, and so that to maintain your source of livelihood. So those are the things that have been fueling it. Like you said, it's a good policy to have organized modular refineries, get it. But what do you do when the people have refused? You can't force them. That is, and 2, the destruction of these cooking pots and all that, you know, yes, some people say it adds to the degradation of the environment, but more of the damage is being done when they bust these pipelines and try to get crude out of it. So it's a big cartel that the communities are enabling, and the traditional ruler, it may not be happening in his own community, like he pointed out, but it's happening in so many communities. Sometimes the traditional rulers cannot speak because they are afraid of these youths. I tell you, if you go to River State, there are some communities that their traditional rulers are not even living in the communities because of these boys. It's happened to tomorrow. And, you know, and so it's a big problem for government, but if the government have the political will, and that is why I insist, government cannot surrender and say they cannot solve it. It's something that government, if they want to, they will solve it.
All right. Thank you very much, Patrick Bambo. Thank you very much. Let's head back via Zoom, where Dennis Amakri is still waiting. Mr. Amakri, now, the question of technology has got to be exciting because it's one way, and in many aspects of our society, that we can check crime, check criminality and all sorts. Why is it difficult, or better put, how can we begin the process of using technology to fight this crime and indeed many others in our society?
Thank you very much. You see, we are very, very slow as a nation. We are very slow in adopting technology. You know, besides, you know, using technology to monitor oil production, even the security agencies is very, very, you know, difficult, and sometimes they don't have the funds to buy very expensive technologies that they could use even in dealing with kidnapping or dealing with other kinds of terrorism and stuff like that. So I think it's, somebody mentioned that is a political will. If we can get that political will from the president, because I think the buck stops on his table. And if he goes ahead to give us that political will, I think a lot of things can be corrected. Because these things, when you mix politics with security, and then of course start to play all kinds of underground games, it becomes very, very difficult. So it is very important that the political will should be there to solve this problem. And that could go for the oil fields, it could go for securing our cities, and even against terrorism in the country.
Okay, let me bring, before we come to Engineer Sani, let me bring Eze Opata into our conversation. And I'd like to ask you, Eze, the PIA, Engineer Sani talked about the effectiveness or otherwise of the petroleum industry PIA that was, you know, signed in 2021. And part of it was, you know, to enable the host communities and, of course, the oil companies enter into a kind of development trust. And we understand that that has been happening. What are your views about the PIE? And is it helping, you know, to, you know, bring the host communities and the oil companies together, you know, to look at issues, to look at the gray areas and probably find an amicable solution?
Well, the concept of a PIA was good for the development of the host communities in the Niger Delta. But unfortunately, the implementation has been a very big problem. As we speak, I'm not aware of any of the IOCs, you know, faithfully and effectively implementing the provisions of the PIA in the communities. I'm not aware. As a matter of fact, as of today, there have been several meetings. They've been calling for several meetings, to discuss the implementation. The clusters have been registered, especially the SPDC has been faithful in registering the clusters, and I'm aware that certain percentage of the money has been released to the Board of Trustees, but they are the point of implementation. But again, the provisions of the PIA are so mysterious to the communities, and most of the IOCs are making it difficult for the communities to even understand what the PIA is all about. And so there is need for government through its agency, especially the National Orientation Agency, to partner with the NNPCL to carry out a sensitization of the communities to understand their responsibility under this new PIA regime. Because we are told, for example, that that communities' money will be deducted if there is pipeline vandalism along their line. Unfortunately, the communities are not part of the surveillance system. And so if you are bringing in soldiers, for example, to guide the pipelines, and the soldiers and pipeline contractors fail in their duty to guide the pipelines, and then you hold the community responsible for damage to the pipeline, it is wrong. And so it is good that the NNPCL and all the agencies that are mandated to implement the PIA should carry out detailed sensitization of the communities so that they will be on the same page with the government and the oil companies. Where this fails, it will be difficult to effectively implement the PIA. But on the side of the government, of course, there is some level of trust, and we believe them. But let us look at the implementation, not the theoretical part they have put in paper.
All right, Your Majesty, thank you very much for the points you have made. As we gradually round off this conversation, let's get back in the studio where Patrick Abambo, in 30 seconds, if you could sum up your contributions, what will be your final word? What's your advice to government? You have talked about a political will. Dennis Amakri had talked about technology, and Engineer Bagisani has also talked about the root causes. What's your submission?
Yeah, it's just to stretch it again that we can't overemphasize on the need for technology. It must be used. You can't put physical human beings all through the pipelines to monitor what is happening. It's not possible. Two, we need to get the physicality of the Nigerian Navy to be at the point of loading and know what is actually happening over there. And I talked about the issue. We must also stress the issue about metering so that everybody will know. We need to know the true figure of what is being produced and what is being lifted. Okay. You can't give me a responsibility and not know anything about it. The Nigerian Navy can only do what they can if they are given information. And that really is the solution. There, of course, the political will, the government must support the agencies to do their proper work.
Thank you. And Engineer Bagisani, your final word.
Yeah, well, my final word is to call on Mr. President to please, address this issue, because believe you me, it is the presidency that can address this issue. I know that Federal Ministry of Trade and Investment has two departments that today, as far as the oil and gas sector is concerned, are in comatose. Government can resuscitate those departments, make sure that the issue of technology is applied, whereby the field devices are effectively checked and are working, and then talking about the front end, meaning that how the crude itself is exported and how much comes to Nigeria and where is the money.
All right.
So my call is to Mr. President.
Okay.
To step up to the plate and address this issue.
All right.
All right. Let's quickly thank His Royal Majesty Felix Otuwarikpo, Dr. Felix Otuwarikpo, the Eze Opata III of Ahoda in Rivers State, and he joined us via Zoom. I would like to thank you, Your Royal Majesty, for your contribution to Good Morning Nigeria. We also like to thank Mr. Dennis Amakre, who is the Assistant Director, DSS, retired security consultant, oil and gas, and he also joined us via Zoom. And back here in the studio, we'd like to appreciate Mr. Patrick Gambu, who is Public Safety and Security Analyst. Thank you very much for joining us. And Engineer Yabage Yusuf Sani, Legal Metrology System Consultant. Thank you very much. All right, let's take a look at sports from our sports desk.
Super Eagles goalkeeper Stanley Nwabali says he's ready for the team's semi-final fixture against the Bafana Bafana of South Africa. Nwabali plays for South African club side Chippa United and is well known to some of the players in the Bafana Bafana team. The shot-stopper stated that facing the Bafana Bafana will be special for him. Wednesday's game will be the 15th clash between both countries at full international level. Nwabali has conceded once in 5 games in Côte d'Ivoire. Nigeria have won 7 of the previous 14 matches, with 5 of those matches drawn and 2 won by South Africa. In tennis, Slovakia provided the biggest shock of the Davis Cup qualifiers as they knocked out 2023 semi-finalist Serbia. France, the Czech Republic, Belgium, Canada, Germany, the Netherlands, USA, Finland, Argentina, Chile and Brazil also booked places in the competition's group stage. Slovakia dumped out a Serbia side missing 24-time Grand Slam champion Novak Djokovic, winning all 4 matches contested on the indoor clay in Kraljevo to reach the group stage of the new format for the first time. They joined last year's winners Italy, 2023 runners-up Australia and wildcards Great Britain and Spain. The 16 qualified nations will contest the group stage from 10th to 15th September.
All right, time for tidbits from the foreign scene.
Lawmakers in Senegal has passed a contentious bill to extend President Macky Sall's tenure and delay elections after he called off a planned election with just 3 weeks to go. Khalifa Sall, a leading opponent and a former mayor of Dakar, who is not related to the president, called the delay a constitutional coup and urged people to protest against it. His political coalition has vowed to go to court. Thierno Alassane Sall, another candidate, also no relation, called it high treason and urged his supporters to gather in front of the National Assembly to protest and remind members of parliament to stand on the right side of history. The proposal needed the support of 3/5 of the 165 deputies to pass. Some opposition members of parliament had been removed by security forces after they tried to block proceedings. And in the United Kingdom, Buckingham Palace says King Charles III has been diagnosed with cancer and has begun treatment, sparking a flood of support from around the world. The 75-year-old, who became king upon the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, on September 8, 2022, has generally enjoyed good health, but the palace said that during his recent visit procedure for benign prostate enlargement, a separate issue of concern was noted. The palace did not elaborate on the type of cancer found or how advanced it was.
All right, and that's Good Morning Nigeria this Tuesday. We thank you for watching, and don't forget tomorrow is Wednesday and the Super Eagles will be out taking on the Bafana of South Africa. We wish them the best of luck. I am Claire Adela Abdurrazak. Bye-bye.
All right, and I'm Victor Azu. We wish you a pleasant day ahead.